This is part 6 of chapter 23, Social Work Practice with American Indians. And I want to share a few words with you about the historical relationship between the federal government of the United States and the American Indian nations. It spans over hundreds of years, and has been more policy, more social policy that has been introduced and passed about the relationship with the American Indians than any other population in the United States. It is so vast and over such a long period of time that historians divide it into eras, E-R-A-S, eras, and assign titles that kind of capture what that particular era is. Some historians divide it into 5, some into 6. The one that is quoted within our textbook here divides it into 6, and I want to just touch on those and highlight those. But there has been a long relationship with the federal government that sometimes has gone well. Unfortunately, more of the time it has not gone well for the American Indians when you look over all of history. Right now is a fairly good time, but no one knows how long this time will occur. One thing is for sure, this time will come to an end and there'll be a change. What it is, we don't know. Later on, historians, will name it and discuss it. We have these 6 periods. The first one, and historians use different titles, but basically it's the same thing: discovery, conquest, and treaty making. That roughly goes from 1532 to 1828. And at first, when people arrived from Europe, there was more of an equality between the Indians and those who were arriving. The Indians knew the land, knew how to survive, and therefore were on more of an equal footing with those who were arriving. Actually, they had a superior footing. But those arriving brought things that the Indians didn't have that kind of evened things out in terms of weaponry, especially with guns. But in the beginning, they found that they needed one another. And so a lot of treaties were entered into where there was this mutual respect. And in the very beginning, things went, for the most part, pretty good. But as more and more people began arriving from Europe and more land was desired, then it wasn't long before things didn't go so well for the Indians. But there was that period. The second period starts in 1882 and goes to 1887, referred to in the textbook as removal and relocation. That demand for land and that lust for land brought about a situation where Indians, through purchasing and through sheer military force, were being removed from their lands from the east of the Mississippi and relocated onto what became known as reservations out in the west. So there was a huge loss of land at this time. Millions of acres were taken away or purchased away from all the various American Indian tribes during that time. They were forced to migrate. This is when you have the Cherokee Nation's Trail of Tears, where on a forced march, many Cherokees, including women and children, died along the way. The next era is referred to as the allotment and assimilation, 1887 to 1928. This is when American Indian nations were forced to give up more of their land, and kind of in return for having an individual little plot of land. Rather than holding land as a nation, everyone would have their own little, 40 acres and a house type of thing, the American kind of farm structure there. Well, this was totally foreign to the Indians. They didn't consider individual ownership of the land and had no sense of that. So not only did they lose land through that process, they even lost a lot of their 40 acres, so to speak, because they were completely unfamiliar with paying taxes on the land. So additional acres were lost through Indians not paying the tax on their property. So it was another period of huge loss of land. All right, now that's part 6. We're going to continue on looking at this issue of these different eras in the next video.